So that now brings us to the third day of creation. What happened on the third day of creation? Well, this was where land was formed. The dry ground was formed. Okay, so there's the baby Earth, and it's living in this nebula filled with planet food. And baby Earth is just gobbling up as much food as it possibly can, and it's growing bigger and bigger and bigger. And it broke away from the gravitational pull of the mother planet and began its own orbit around the star. Okay, so as the Earth got bigger and fuller, well, living things have to poop out once in a while. And baby Earth started to poop out, and that was through volcanoes. You know, all the surplus food that it was eating built up pressure inside the center of the Earth, and cracks opened up, and there was volcanoes, and it spewed forth material from its core. And so, and it wasn't, it had several hundred million of years, several hundreds of millions of years to do this, but it gave up a lot of land and came up on made a huge continent. I think they're calling this continent Pangaea, I think is what the name of it is. And so this happened in the third day of creation. And as soon as the land was capable of supporting plant life, then God told the earth to bring forth plant life. Okay, now I want you to understand something here about why plant life without animal life. Well, because of the creation, there was a lot of carbon dioxide and not a whole lot of free oxygen in the atmosphere. So when the earth needed plants to build up some kind of oxygen-rich atmosphere. Okay, so, we're talking about hundreds of millions of years here between building a landmass and having plants grow. The other thing that needs to be understood about the earth is that the earth had the seeds and the knowledge of life from its mother. It inherited this information, and it inherited seeds from the mother planet. So God told the earth to bring forth plant life, and the earth brought forth plant life. All right? The earth is a living thing, and it has the ability to create life. And that's an important point to understand about the earth. And as we talk more about it with animals, because that's coming up in a couple more days, the earth, even today, creates new life. There's something that evolutionists don't want to admit, and that is that they're finding new species all the time that don't have any genetic link to any of the other existing species, and it's completely new. And they just can't seem to admit that the earth has the ability to create life, and that evolution is not a reality. But anyway, so for hundreds of millions of years, the earth is continuing to with plant life, and it's beginning to build an atmosphere, which brings us next to the fourth day of creation. Well, the fourth day of creation tells about the formation of the solar system. Now, I want you to understand that within the nebula, it's a lot, for a planet, it's planets and stars, it's a lot like us being in water. The physics change a little bit being in water. Where we're suspended in the water, we can do things that we can't do outside of the water, like on dry ground. We can swim, It's kind of the same thing in the nebula. Stars and planets can swim. I watched one video one time where it was talking about stars and planets capturing planets and planets capturing moons in regular space, and it's an impossibility because of speeds and because of motion, and there's all kinds of factors that play into capturing a planet. Things that are not possible in open space are possible within the nebula. So what happened is that the sun is passing through the nebula, okay, and the sun is picking up planets and moons as it goes along, okay. Now I don't know if the Earth was taken on the first or on the very first pass of the sun through our solar system, but I don't think so, because there are some planets that are older than the Earth, and moons also that are older than the Earth, and there's evidence that some of them are much younger than the Earth. So, but the last time that we went through, that the sun went through a nebula, because stars passing through the nebula are moving faster than the nebula is moving in the galaxy, okay? As the sun passed through, it picked up planets and moons, I don't know how many at each pass, and continued on in its course, okay? And then when it left the nebula, it was in its own orbit, which may have been a new orbit because it may have moved up or moved down in its orbit, and took the Earth with it. And the moon was put into its place at the same time. There's speculation that the moon was a created object and specifically placed where it was, but it's not a natural born object, and that may be true, you see, because God has power to make those kinds of things, and it maybe just so happened that there was a created moon specifically for the Earth that came out of the nebula with the sun and was placed in the heavens where it is, but not accidentally, and not by a God that is not the God of this world. All right? So that's the fourth day. Fourth day of creation is the solar system was created, and it is, it has its place in the heavens where it is today. Okay, so that brings us now to the fifth day of creation. Now, the fifth day of creation is about animal life. Okay, so the Earth has finally built up sufficient atmosphere to support animal life. And the first animals that the Earth brought forth, because the Earth brought forth the animals, were animals that in one case were plant-eating insects, and then there were birds, and there were reptiles, and there were other small animals that were herbivores. And so for hundreds of millions of years, there was a basic ecology, to on the side of the plants to build up more atmosphere, and then there was plant life that would support, or there was animal life that would support the coming of larger animals. And that went on for a long, long time. Well, then we come to the sixth day of creation. The sixth day of creation is the creation of the big animals. Okay. Oh, and then the fifth day of creation, there were also the fishes in the sea. That needs to be mentioned also. So on the sixth day of creation were the larger land animals, and the Earth brought forth living animals.